Almost there. Chapter 29, Naveen. The boat made a loud puttering sound as it sloughed its way through the swamp waters. Louis relaxed against the starboard side and twirled his trumpet on his finger. Charlotte had declared that the rocking was making her both seasick and sleepy. She was currently curled up toward the front on the boat's knobby bench, with one of Tiana's bags of provisions serving as her pillow. Naveen turned his attention to Tiana. She was focused, her eyes constantly roaming from left to right. She had refused his offer to take their driving duties, proudly declaring that she could steer the boat just fine on her own. All he wanted was to give her a little time to rest. As he stared at her profile, Naveen wondered what had spawned her need to constantly be in pursuit of something, as if taking a moment to just relax was some kind of invisible mark against her. "Are you sure you do not want me to take over?" he tried again. "Just for a little while, so that you can stretch your neck?" Is that the right phrase? Stretch your neck? "I've got it," she answered. "The canals are getting narrower the deeper we get into the bayou. I've got to take care to stay in the center of the waterway. Last thing we need is to have the propeller get caught in a bunch of weeds." After a few minutes, their tranquil surroundings were polluted with a loud snore. Naveen looked over his shoulder and chuckled at the sight of Louis and Charlotte now sharing the same bag as a pillow. "So much for help from those two, eh?" he said. Tiana glanced over her shoulder and smiled. "It's probably for the best. Easier to concentrate on where we're going." Naveen thought it best as well. He liked the idea of not having to share Tiana's attention with their other boatmates. Although it was not as if she was paying all that much attention to him. After her earlier teasing about his interesting dance moves, she had gone back to manning the boat and had not spoken much. "Do you find it odd that the heavy fog is no longer with us?" Naveen asked, deciding the weather was a safe subject to start with. "I would have thought it would be worse here in this soupy swamp, no?" "I don't know what to make of that fog," she said, but then she sat up straighter. "Actually, I just had a thought. Maybe it's because we're no longer in New Orleans, and it's the city that's—" She stopped. Her mouth pulled into a frown. "I'm not sure," she said. "I just hope it lets up soon back home." A bug whizzed past Tiana's head, and she flapped her hands around and waving it away. "Ugh, I don't particularly like these stowaways, especially after Congo Square." She shifted toward the side of the boat, then ran her fingers through the water. Naveen's breath quickened as he was struck with a strange sense of familiarity. It was as if he had already seen her do that very thing. Have we been here before?" he asked. Tiana looked at him. Her big brown eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What do you mean? In this boat?" "Yes," he nodded. "I remember you talking about your dislike of bugs. You do not want to eat one." Her eyes widened with dismay. "What am I talking about?" Naveen laughed nervously. "That was a ridiculous thing to say. Why would there be talk about you eating a bug?" Although he was certain there had been. Well, almost certain. He shook his head. Maybe the heat was getting to him. "And of course we have not been here before. We have not been anywhere before." He huffed out a regretful sigh. "You practically run whenever I'm near you." The moment he said those words, Naveen wished he could take them back. They revealed too much. He was afraid if Tiana knew just how much she captivated him, she would pull away even more. "It's not you," she said. His ears shot to hers. His eyes shot to hers. "It's not? Forget I said that," she said quickly. No, please." He leaned toward her. "What did you mean?" "Really, it's nothing." She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "It's like I said before. I'm very busy with my restaurant." She glanced away from the water just long enough to grace him with a subtle grin. "But I guess it wouldn't hurt to occasionally sit and talk with you and Lottie when y'all are at the supper club." "I would like that very much," Naveen said. He would like it even more if it were just the two of them, without Charlotte, but that would come eventually. He would take baby steps with Tiana. They returned to that companionable silence again, but Naveen no longer felt the impulse to fill it with chatter. He had achieved what he had to set out to accomplish. He had managed to get Tiana to smile at him, talk to him. She had even agreed not to scurry away when he approached her. Naveen? Tiana's soft voice pierced his musings. Yes? I actually am getting a little tired. Would you mind taking over for a minute? Of course not. He stood so quickly that he caused the boat to wobble just a bit. Charlotte woke up with a start. What's going on? It's nothing, Lottie, Tiana said. Naveen is going to drive the boat for a while. Go back to sleep. Oh, okay, Charlotte said, then put her head down again. Sorry about that, Naveen replied. He moved closer to the motor and grabbed hold of the wooden handle he used to steer it. As Tiana released her hold on the handle, her hand brushed against his. It felt as if a bolt of electricity flashed through him. The air shot around them was heavy with something Naveen could not describe as they stared at each other for several minutes, neither moving their hands. I'm going to get a pear, Tiana said. Do you want anything? Not a pear, Naveen said without thinking. He mentally scolded himself over his forwardness. But Tiana did not chastise him. Instead, a blush formed on her delicate cheeks. Achidanza. She was so lovely. She took his breath away. She finally slipped her hand away from his and moved to the front of the boat. Naveen could hear her shushing Charlotte in a soothing voice. A few minutes later she returned, claiming the spot where he had sat for much of their journey. So, Tiana, where exactly are we headed again? She took a bite of her pear and chewed excruciatingly slowly, so slow that Naveen was sure she had done so on purpose. After a moment she said, There's a lady who lives down on the bayou. She's special. She has, special powers. She chuckled. I know this may sound crazy to you, but no, he said, cutting her off. If you need to see a bayou lady with special powers, who am I to judge? He almost asked if she had ever mentioned Mama Odie to him before, but after his statement about the bug, he thought it's best to not say anything. She smiled that smile at him again, the one that made Naveen think that maybe he really was starting to make some progress. I was a bit surprised that you wanted to drive the boat at all, Tiana said. You're not one for manual labor, at least you didn't used to be. You've changed. How do you know that I have changed? Because, well, you made quite the splash when you first came to New Orleans. Your reputation for being a laissez-faire playboy was well known throughout the city. Yeah, well, that was last year. It doesn't seem all that long ago, she remarked in a wistful voice. No, Naveen said. No, it does not. He tipped his head to the side. Yet in so many ways it feels like a lifetime. Really? How so? He shrugged. I just feel like a different person. I cannot explain it. Naveen chuckled. I often think about what my parents would say if they saw their... what was that phrase you just used? Laissez-faire? It means carefree, she said around another bite of pear. Yes, their laissez-faire son. My father would probably say, Why did it take you coming to America to learn the value of a hard day's work? He mimicked his father's voice. Although he was not so sure about that anymore. Based on that letter he had received from his parents, they no longer cared about his lack of work ethic. But he cared. He did not want to be seen as that lazy, carefree playboy anymore, especially by Tiana. How do you know so much about my reputation? Naveen peered at her from his side of the boat. It sounds as if you're paying more attention to me than you let on, Miss Tiana. She pulled her bottom lip between her teeth, a demure smile playing on her lips. Don't flatter yourself, she said, but the words didn't hold much censor. It was almost as if she was teasing him. Was she teasing him? It'd be a very good thing if that was the case. Teasing was one step closer to not running away from him. Tiana reached over and pulled a leaf from a low-hanging branch. She twirled it in between her fingers. "Can I ask you something?" she asked. "Anything," Naveen quickly answered. "Do you ever think about going home to... where is it you're from again?" He sent her a sly smile. "Come on now, Tiana. Would you have me believe you don't know where I'm from?" "Fine." She rolled her beautiful brown eyes. "Maldonia. Do you ever think of going back to Maldonia, Mr. Prince?" Naveen decided to be honest. "Sometimes," he answered. "But I'm not so sure I would go back to stay. I miss my parents and the rest of my family, but I want to show them all that I can move about in the world without our family's money, that I can make it on my own, and, well, maybe I want to show myself that too." "Do they know you're working in a sugar mill?" "What's wrong with working in a sugar mill?" "Nothing," she said. "You just don't see that many princes doing that." "Well, it is nice to be the first at something in my family," he said with a grin. They relaxed again into one of those comfortable silences. This time Naveen did not interrupt it. He welcomed it, the sounds of bird chirping and the toads croaking. There was something peaceful about the unseen inhabitants of the swamp going about their day. He glanced over at Tiana and caught her yawning. It was the prettiest yawn he had ever seen. "You can go to sleep if you would like," he told her. "You can trust me to man the boat." "I don't think so," she said with a laugh. She yawned again. This one was by far the prettiest yawn he'd ever seen. "I'll stay up and keep you company," she said. "Just keep us steady. Don't veer off course for a second." "You have a lot of demands, you know that?" "So I've been told," she said. He peered out over the water again. "I don't know why, but I cannot shake the feeling that I've been here before," Naveen remarked. "There is something about this swamp that seems very familiar to me. The smell, I think. I cannot explain it." "Well," Tiana started, then stopped. "Well, what?" Naveen queried. "Well, maybe some of the men who work at the sugar mill are from around here. You probably smell it on their clothes. It's not easy to get rid of the scent once it's in your skin." "So you're telling me I will smell like this stinky swamp forever?" She laughed. "It'll wear off eventually." "You have a lovely laugh," Naveen said. "So beautiful, so rare." "I laugh all the time," she countered. "You should laugh more often when you're around me. I would like it very much to make you laugh, Tiana." Naveen could not be sure, but he thought he saw a faint spark of interest in her gaze before she broke eye contact. She fiddled with the kerosene lamp she'd brought. "Should I light this?" she asked. He sighed. Just when he thought they were bonding, she pulled away. "I can see just fine now," Naveen answered. "Why don't you save it in case it gets murkier?" "Okay," she said. Then she yawned again, with her whole body this time stretching her bald fist in the air. "Actually, I think I will take that nap. You'll wake me if you need me?" she asked. There was much he would still have liked to say, but Naveen feared they would go right back to the way things had been, when she had seemed put off by his very presence. So instead he said, "I have him from here, Tiana. Get some rest."